I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends Podcast. With me this week is my good friend Dave Fries, and Dave has been on the podcast before. His background is law, but he's also done a lot of work with spies, interrogators, people in special forces. He's worked with them, he's helped train them. And just recently, Dave was up here in Cairns with me, and we did a workshop with a group of business people, and then also a breakfast with 160 students. And Dave taught some of these different techniques, and there were a few things that stood out to me that I thought this would be a great podcast, be perfect for podiatrists. So we've set this all up in my backyard. So if it sounds a little bit different, if you hear birds chirping in the background, you'll understand why, or dogs barking.
Or cockatoos screeching.
And the other part is if you're watching the video, you will already understand this because you'll see we're sitting in my backyard. So Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Tyson, thank you for having me, and thank you for having me come to Australia and to speak to those students. A lot of people were alarmed when they heard you thought it was appropriate for me to speak to young people.
Well, I don't think the students knew what they were in for. And
it was fantastic.
And I think their teachers would be a little bit more concerned now because some of the stuff you taught them on language patterns and things that you can say. And as one student said, I'm here because I want to learn how to manipulate people.
He was my hero. We should start with that warning that these are very, very manipulative skills and techniques. And so people sometimes object on that basis, but I'm fond of reminding everyone, all human communication is manipulation. Like, we are attempting to manipulate the folks who we're talking to get them to learn something, to have a good time, to be able to apply what they learned in a way that's going to be really helpful to them.
Well, the example you gave was when someone tells a joke, they're trying to manipulate the other person because they want to get someone to laugh or react to that joke. So it's true. Everything we do and say is going to manipulate someone, and so in a positive way.
Yes, exactly. For a doctor listening, it's not, is it manipulative or not? That's the wrong question. It is, how are you intending to use it? It's the intent behind it. So all of these could be used in practice with patients to help them change the way they view something, begin to expect an outcome, to become more cooperative, to release resistance to a treatment. It can be used for all those purposes. But as we go through this, people will see they could use them in their everyday life for negotiating, having more fun with a partner, whatever you think that means. There's so many ways that these would apply to life.
Yeah, and when we were at the breakfast with the students, you were going through this, and there were some sponsors there. And there was one of the ladies, Angela, from Star FM, one of the radio stations. And as you were going through some of these patterns, I said, this is how your salespeople would use it at the radio station. And she went, oh, never thought about it that way. I said, however, this is how, when the radio station people used to come to me as a salesperson, I would use it against them. Because they want to sell me a package, an advertising package, and I would go, okay, and I'd go through something else to try and get more from what they were actually offering. And they would go, oh, okay. And some people used to ask me, how do you always get this, this, and this from advertisers? And I go, because I asked for it. Mm-hmm. And one of those techniques is actually in here, which is what I used to use. So where do we start with this? What's the first one?
All right, so let's give these a little bit of context. These come from the way in which Dr. Milton Erickson used to communicate. So Erickson was kind of the founder of modern medical hypnosis. Yeah. And a lot of psychiatrists that had had patients for years and just couldn't have success, that patient would move over to Erickson, and there would be changes, dramatic changes often, in a very short period of time. And that was because Erickson did not use directed language. He wasn't demanding, like you didn't demand, give me more.
No.
And he wasn't using his power as a doctor. He used non-directive language. So just a little bit on that before we go. So a classical medical hypnotherapist might say, raise your arm and let it float in the air, or you're at the beach, imagine baking in the sun. But if someone hated the beach and didn't want to be in the sun, it would be awful. And so Erickson knew that one of the ways to do this was to let the other person's mind do the work. So Erickson might say, I don't know where you like to go to relax, what you like to think, or how you like to breathe, but you do. And so we all know how we like to do things, so the brain fills in those blanks. Yeah. So a lot of this is based on that, which is presupposing that things will happen, giving people freedom to think in a new or different way or from a different perspective. So should we start with one?
Wait, let's go to the first one. How many were we running through? Is it
I think 10.
10, okay.
If we have time. If we don't get to 10, you know that we terribly miscalculated.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 is going to be pushing it, and you don't have to, we should also say, Tyson, you made a great point. You used one of these to get amazing results over an extended period of time.
Well, when we get to the one that I was talking to the sales rep and how I was always able to get more from the sales rep that they hadn't even considered, when we get to that one, I'll point that one out. It was a great one.
I guess the good thing is, if you learn one or two of these, you'll be in a radically different position in terms of being persuasive and influential than before you knew them. And we should also say that just repeating them out loud, you're going to have this video or this audio, depending on how you're consuming this, and just listening to it is helpful, but repeating them out loud in your own way and thinking of other examples as we go. So I prepared some examples that would be helpful for podiatrists.
I'm not sure if we already said it. All communication is manipulation, but it's the intent on how you're using it.
Exactly.
You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. We're using this for good.
Yeah. I mean, you could be selfish about it, or you could be using it to help the patient get faster, better recovery. And at the same time, when they get that better, faster recovery, you could also let them have permission to share with other people how awesome you are.
Yeah. So it's not just about using these techniques to sell more or to convince patients to do something. It's more about helping them get through the treatment better as well.
Sure. I think it is appropriate to use them to sell more and to get them to refer more and to get them to stay with you longer. All of those uses are appropriate as long as you're giving them outstanding treatment. But to Tyson's point, this can be used to reduce resistance to treatment, to help accelerate treatment, to change how they view the treatment from something that's onerous and hard to do to something that's where they are directly seizing control of their recovery. So
okay, let's start the first one.
All right. I actually want to start with the second one because...
Okay, let's start the second one.
Yeah, just because it's a good way to start off. So this one uses the brain's capacity to go into sort of repetitive thinking. So this one is fact, 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 and. So we say a fact, that their brain goes, yep, fact, yep, fact. We say one more fact, yep, fact. And then we introduce something that we want them to accept, that would be helpful and useful to them to accept. So the example I have here is you're concerned about this issue. You've been thinking about it for a while. You probably know this with the patient in front of you. And you came here today specifically to solve it. And you know the answer is probably simpler than you think. Or you know that the answer is to do this treatment. Or you know that the answer is to take this supplement, whatever it might be. So this is fact, something you know about them. So look, if we're talking to your audience here, you're listening to this or watching this, you're thinking about how to make your practice better. This is a fact. This is a fact. You want to learn things that will make that easier for you. And you know that the solution is to practice 2 or 3 of these. So it's fact, 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 the thing you want them to accept. Why does this work? The brain goes, oh, that's a fact. Yep, that's true. They're telling me the truth. Yep, that's a fact. And now you've introduced this thing that you want to be a fact to them. They're going to accept it in a more likely in a more thorough way by associating with the fact that they're going fact, fact, fact. A thing you want them to believe, fact.
So could you use it in the same way if you had a patient and then you say, okay, you're a 45-year-old male.
Fact.
You've had this problem now for 6 months.
Fact.
Over that 6 months, it has actually gotten worse. Then introduce...
Because they've told you all of those things.
Yeah, they've already told you that. So you're repeating what you know about them, what they've told you. And then you introduce, so what we're going to do...
Yep. So you might say the most likely way to get well in the quickest way is this.
Yeah.
So fact, fact, fact. The quickest way to get better is this.
Okay, so they're taking all that information. They go, that was true, that was true, that was true.
Well,
they've told me 3 things that are true. They're not about to lie to me.
Yep. Whereas if you started with, oh, this is the treatment, they may not accept that that's really true. So you're laying this really powerful foundation in their brain for them to accept it in a way. Now, look, you don't want people to just mindlessly accept everything you tell them because they may have a piece of knowledge or objection to a particular treatment that's relevant, but you want to make it more likely.
Yeah. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
This is one of my favorites as well.
Okay, now we're going to number 1.
Number 1, yeah. One of the things you're going to love about X is Y. This one is very powerful. So we're starting with two really, 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 really powerful ones. We're not suggesting that you shut off the show after this, because there's some other good ones. But we're giving you two right up front that can make a massive difference in how you practice and how your speaking and discussions and conversations are perceived. So one of the things you're going to love about X is Y. One of the things is a presupposition. It presupposes that
There's going to be more.
lots more. That's right.
If there's one thing you're going to love, you're saying, or they're thinking, oh, if there's one, there's going to be many things.
I think if you tweak this a little bit too, you could say just one of the many things you're going to love about X is Y. That's more overt. It sort of depends on your judgment about the person, whether you can be even more discreet. One of the things you're going to love about X is Y. So an example might be one of the things you're going to appreciate most about this recovery process is how it removes the guesswork as to what to do entirely. So what you're doing is you're suggesting, by the way, that all of their questions that are unnecessary that might interfere are just going to go away. Yeah. It removes the guesswork completely, so it's going to be easy, and you've presupposed one of the things. You might also say, depending on who they are, one of the many, many things you're going to appreciate about this recovery process is how it removes the guesswork completely, how good you feel each time you decide to practice it and then follow through. See, so you can load these on top of one another. Any questions about that from the podiatrist?
Even if they were explaining shockwave therapy, if they were laser therapy, if you were thinking about orthotics, you could say the one thing you're going to love about whatever this treatment plan is this. And then you can go on from there.
And you can be funny about it too, which often helps to break the ice and work with the right person. Let's say there are a bunch of things that you've given them to do. You might say about laser, for example, or orthotics is one of the many things you're going to love about this recovery process is the laser doesn't require you to do anything. Or the orthotic, we do all the work and then you just walk. So,
and I think patients like they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's especially funny if you've given them 2 or 3 other things they have to do. Now you go like, okay, we gave you 2 or 3 things to have to do. We know you're going to love doing them. We know that you're going to see the recovery from them quickly. But one of the things about this, one of the many things you're going to love is you don't have to do anything.
And I think this works well too. If sometimes you, like, say you go to a physio, and so I haven't been on a podiatrist, so I can't find a podiatrist to say to me. But just say you're a physio. And podiatrists do this as well. You'll go give the patient, you say, I'm going to give you 3 exercises. Mm-hmm. As soon as, whenever I'm at the physio and they say, I'm going to give some exercises, I go,
oh God, work.
Do I really have to do this? I really don't want to do it. But if they opened it up with one of the things you're going to love about these exercises is, and they told me a couple of things, I would go, it would actually make it settle a little bit more. I said, I'm not just doing the exercise for this. I'm going to love doing the exercises for these reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it gives that whole process context. And you said it in a really good way. Tyson does this very intuitively. But like I said, even if this seems a little bit awkward at first, just saying them out loud and practice them with a spouse, a partner, a friend, before you go to patients makes it easier. Because with patients, we feel like, well, I'm a lawyer, so I would call them my clients. But for you guys, for patients, it feels like there's a certain element of danger there the first time you're practicing something new. So practicing this in a different context where it's really easy and you can't make a mistake makes you deliver these much more intuitively and easily.
So if you've got children, start on your children.
Absolutely. Well, they're definitely doing this to you.
They do.
One of the things you're going to love about taking me for ice cream
is I'll do my homework.
Yeah, I'll be happier about it. I'll give you less lip.
Okay, let's move on to the third one.
Yeah. So the third one is they said, or they say, or someone else, like a mentor or a doctor that you know, or a doctor who has a high level of expertise in this area. They said X or Y. If you've got something to say where there could be an objection or pushback, if you say it, they can push back against you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say, my professor at university, my professor in medical school or podiatry school said that in situations like this, and this are true, or you should do this, and this.
I love this one.
Harder to press back against your high-level doctor, teacher at podiatry school. So this takes away a whole level or basis on which they can have objection. So I like this too. I wrote an example here for podiatrists. A patient last week said, I wish I'd done this 5 years ago.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, a patient said, so you're suggesting a treatment or a modality of healing, and they are giving you some resistance. You're seeing into the body language or questions they're asking or whatever. This is a good one. You can say, oh, I can understand how you might feel that way. And a patient who said the very same thing to me and felt the very same way was talking to me last week and said, I wish I'd done this 5 years ago.
That's fantastic.
It's a
I
really
love
good
that one because,
Worth the price of admission, by the way.
yeah, if you got to this far, we've got 7 more to go through.
Yeah, and we could stop and you would make money and be a happier human being thanks to Tyson.
Okay, well, let's move on to the fourth one then.
Okay. Because, so there's been a number of scientific studies done on this, and Cialdini writes about this one in his book on persuasion. And the human brain is funny. It's much more likely to agree to something, anything, but a request in particular, when there is a reason. Weirdly, it turns out the reason does not have to be good. So in this study that we're talking about, they had a bunch of people who were plants waiting in a line with someone who was the subject of the scientific study. And they were waiting at a photocopier to make photocopies. And then they had a person, also a plant, come up to the test subject and say, can I jump in line? I have to make some copies. And I don't remember the exact statistics, but a large number of people would, in the study, let that person jump in front. But if they said, can I jump in real quick? Because I have to make some copies, so a reason, not just that I'm making some copies, the compliance with the request soared. So an example would be, it makes sense to move forward on this today because every day you wait is a day that problem continues to bother you. That problem continues to cause pain. That problem continues to interfere with your ability to play sport, whatever it might be that's important to them.
Yeah.
So just because has a magical power.
And this is the one I was talking to the sales rep about.
Yes.
Because the sales rep said to me, oh, how can I use this? And I said, well, as a sales rep, you would explain everything and then you put because and tell them why you think it's a good idea. And I said, but this is the one that I used to use against the sales reps because they'd explain the proposal to me and I say, oh, that's great, but we'll be able to get 10 or 20 extra spots. This might be radio or TV back in the day, between this time because, and I tell them why. And there was one in particular when I said, I need my ads to be the first ad just before the news at this particular time, is like say 8 o'clock. And I said, because I know that my ideal patients are usually in their car at that time. And I know most of them are listening to the news as they get to work or as they're dropping kids off to school. And they go, oh, okay.
Whereas if you just said, I need them to be at this time, they may have 100 reasons why they're not going to do it. But you triggered in their brain a receptive mentality that just happens because you use the word because the brain is searching for a reason. The brain also doesn't like if you leave a blank or an opening, and I've seen you do this too, Tyson. Tyson's very skilled at using these, which is that you'll be asking people questions and they'll be answering, and you'll just leave that blank space there, and then they'll tell you more. And then you'll leave that blank space there or say, what else?
It's surprising though, just saying because how much extra power it gives to what it is that you're asking for.
It sounds ridiculous, like it won't work, but anybody listening, watching, do it, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, test it out. And the thing, all these things we're going through, there's going to be 10. You might just pick one and then just work on that and see how you go and go, oh, this actually works. Wonder what I can do with the other 9 and then keep going from there.
But just getting good at one, realizing that it does work, makes it more likely you're going to use it again and again. Again, you become more practiced, it becomes more natural, and it just works better and better and better. It's like anything else, isn't it?
Isn't it? Number 5.
Number 5, the tag question. This is good because it gets you good information whether you've been persuasive or not. So if you're talking to a patient about a treatment protocol or something they have to do, you might say, I imagine you feel like that's going to work pretty quickly for you, don't you? Now, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if you say, don't you, it's much more likely that they're at least going to get the feeling that they do.
Yeah.
And if they're really resistant, they might say to you, no. Or they might say, yeah, sure. And now you know you're not quite there yet. You don't have them feeling that way. But if you say, it seems like you're ready to go with this and you're very confident about your recovery, aren't you? If they go, yeah, I am, enthusiastically.
So the tag question isn't it? It's
don't you?
Don't you?
Wouldn't it?
Okay.
Isn't it? Yeah. Any little question at the end. Can't you? Those little questions where you're using your voice to suggest that you're already there gives them the opportunity to agree with you or to disagree with you. Either way, you're getting useful information. But the tag question itself at the end has been studied, and it raises the level of agreement. So if you ask the same question without the tag question, or said the same thing without the tag question, people are less likely to agree with you than if you add the tag question.
Okay. So it's a good thing when you think a patient may be ready to start the treatment plan, and then you're really just reinforcing it with this question.
Yes.
And then that's going to bring out an objection.
Yes, which is good to know. You don't want the patient to leave with the objection in their head, never shared with you because you weren't able to address it. And I'll bet for anybody listening here, there's a series of the most common objections to each type of treatment or each modality. And you're really expert. You're good at explaining to people why that objection is not true, or that they can remember to forget it, or that they can release it. But you don't get to do that if you don't know what the objection is. So number 6.
Number 6.
A person can is a variation on they said. But in this case, it's letting them distance. You don't have to say you could do this, because they might or might not yet be completely there and believe it. So you could say a person can, or mention some other person who did. So you could say a person could find that once they've made this kind of decision, the energy that used to go into worrying about it gets redirected into feeling better. So if they're faced with a ankle surgery, or they have a problem with plantar fasciitis and they have to do this thing, this particular process, you're telling them, a person, not them, you're not saying they have to feel better, but in order to understand this sentence, they have to make an image in their mind of a person feeling better. And the brain, when they're making that image in their mind, our brain's very bad at distinguishing between mental images we create in our mind and the reality. And this plays on that. So when they can feel more comfortable imagining some third party getting better, but now they've seen an example of this third party.
So they're saying that, you're saying that all these images are going through their minds, so now they can visualize somebody getting better.
Yes.
Then they can put themselves in that exact same position and possibly think that they can get better as well.
Yes. What we find is when I ask people to describe what went on in their heads when we're doing this, is a lot of people just leap right to imagining themselves doing it because you didn't tell them to. You're not pushing them around. And then other people see someone doing it, but now you've put a chink in the armor of their resistance because they know it can be done.
Makes sense?
Number 7. Can you imagine?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So inviting their imagination in is a very powerful tool. Again, this is a pure play on what we've been talking about, which is you're trying to get people to do things in their head. Now, you're not doing it, they're doing it, but think of yourself as the catalyst. So an example here is of a couple. Can you imagine what it would feel like to have this completely handled, maybe permanently?
Oh, imagine saying that to a patient. Can you imagine what it'll be like when you do not have heel pain anymore and you can get back into running?
Yes.
Doing that marathon that you said that you always wanted to do, but you keep re-injuring the same spot. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when you cross that finish line pain-free?
Exactly.
Other than the pain from doing the marathon.
Yeah, so you've linked up this thing that you have to be pretty sure they really want that.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people that say they want to run a marathon.
They don't really want to.
No, so that would be horrifying to them.
I've been saying for years, I've always wanted to do skydiving.
Oh,
Always wanted to jump. Always wanted to jump out of an airplane. And I think it was my 40th birthday. That's exactly what I got. And I said, sometimes you just got to be careful. I said, just because you tell people this doesn't mean it's true.
No.
So I did it. It was fun.
But these sort of language patterns help with. People say that you could even say that. People say they want this and they recover. People say they want that recover. I don't know exactly what deep down you really, really want, but you do. You know what you want to happen. And then the other thing is, doctors, you've in podiatry dealt with secondary gain. So you might even say sometimes people realize that even though there is pain, there are other benefits to this. So when you think about it, you really have to think about the things that would matter to you so much and be so good that it's easy and okay to forget about the secondary gain too.
I like that. I love this sort of language patterns when people have got to visualize and imagine certain things. And like you said, everybody sees things different.
So my second example, and can you imagine, and then
Yeah.
we can move on, is can you imagine the conversations you'll be able to have with your family once this is in place? Or can you imagine how you'll feel and what you'll be able to tell people when you're back to your sport? Can you imagine? So you could give them a series or sequences of things that lead them to where they want to be. What you're probably noticing and thinking about this is the more you know the patient at a deeper level and what really matters to them and the sort of things, like you could tell when a patient says, oh, I hope I can run a marathon versus somebody that goes, I would just love to walk around the park with my wife pain-free on date night. You get to work
Yeah.
the date night in there.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into more explicit detail.
I know, but it's the same when I'm talking to coaching clients, and I say to them, can you imagine what it's going to be like when a lot of the systems in your business are running fine and you're making more money? Can you imagine what it's going to be like to be able to go and take a 2-3 week holiday and know you're going to come back and everything is going to be running
Still working.
exactly the way that it should? And you can see the grin.
Yeah.
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 Cheshire cat. You can see it straight away because they can imagine what that would be like. Sometimes they don't think it's possible,
Mhm.
but once you get them thinking about it, and then they start seeing the changes, that the imagine stuff becomes a reality.
Let's give them a bonus because if you said that, what can you imagine this? Can you imagine that? And you see their delight, but you also sense that there is reluctance, right?
Yeah.
I would ask a question, like as you're thinking about that and all the positive things that you can and will love about it, what would have to happen starting right now in order for that to become a reality? And they'll run through a whole bunch of things that would have to happen. And then I get them to tell me one, and I'll go, okay, what's the simplest thing that you could do? So, for example, I had somebody say to me, oh, I really want to be able to play golf. And I said, okay, what would have to happen in order for you to do everything you needed to do to be able to play golf? And so they're going through, I need to take a lesson, I need to get new golf clubs. So it's very daunting, right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, what's the simplest thing that would have to happen in order for you to be able to move quickly into playing golf? And he said to me, oh, I'd have to take a lesson. I said, okay, that's the simplest thing. What's something simpler?
So I recall this. You did this last year.
Yes.
This is Black Ops in Arizona.
Yes. And so I said, so it was make an appointment. I said, can you do that right now? So here's the difference. I got them to do something right then that already has the momentum moving. It wasn't just thinking about it. They actually took this very simple action. They made an appointment to get the golf lesson and put it in their calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that because I remember them saying, oh, I need to book a lesson. But
Yeah.
there was a step before that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you need to take a lesson, but let's go and book it in. Can you do it now? Yes. So as soon as they book it in, I always say that once you book something in, far more chance of
Way more likely. Way
Yeah.
more likely. 3 more to go. 8, 9, and
Okay,
10.
8, 9, and 10. Let's get into it.
If my counting and arithmetic are still solid.
I remember I have done some podcasts where I say, I'm going to give you these 11 things, and I run through it. And then when I go back and I'm doing the editing, and I go, damn it, I don't know what happened, but there's only 9. But we will have 10. There will definitely be 10 here.
You can always go back in the visual and just scratch out the 11 and put a 9. This one is very good and very powerful. I first discovered how powerful it was when I was talking to people. I'm a trust and estates lawyer by training, so I often have to talk to people about grief. And I would say, because people want to feel grief, it's okay. And so I'd say, eventually, you're going to feel differently about this, and you could still take with you all these amazing memories of the person that you lost. So the trick here, the language pattern, is eventually blank. So eventually just presupposes the desired outcome that you're going to get. So if somebody has a difficult process to get back to where they were or where they want to be, you might say, I know it might have seemed daunting up until now. So we recognize that it seemed daunting to them. We said up until now, we're referring to how it seemed in the past tense. We say, eventually, you're going to be able to do everything it takes to be able to go back to playing sport, to having a better relationship with your partner, whatever it might be.
Good part with this one too is I use this one eventually on myself
Oh, all the time.
all the time. Well, people, if you've been listening to the podcast over the last so many weeks, would know that I had a back injury, affected my sciatic, numb foot, shooting pain, couldn't walk, pretty much bedridden for the first couple of weeks. But even when that was all going on, I kept saying to my wife, eventually I'm going to be back 100% back at Muay Thai, going to the gym, I'm going to be doing everything. And so there's a lot of times, no matter what's gone on with me, any accident, injury, I'm always, eventually I'm going to be back to how it is.
And sometimes you know from the injury that they're not going to be back to 100% of where they were. Like I had a bad spinal cord injury. I felt like I could get back to where I was before. Maybe, I mean, I got back because of the injury was serious. Maybe I got back to 97%. But where I have that, I say eventually I'm going to get back to where I was or at the highest possible level of function that I can have. So you might say, well, Dave, you're giving up the possibility. I'm not. I'm saying eventually I'm going to get back to that or to the maximum that I'm possibly going to be able to do.
So with your patients, you use this exactly the same way.
Sure.
Whatever treatment and you're telling them, eventually you're going to be able to be doing the sport that you were doing beforehand, the same activity. And all you should say, in fact, you made me do it better. You may do it better because once you've got my inserts in your shoes, changes your life.
So for you listening, one might be that we would use for you, eventually you'll find yourself using these language patterns effortlessly and all the time in almost every conversation. Because when we're conversing with people, we could do it the easy way or the hard way. So why not do it the easy way?
And I recommend with everyone, don't just listen to this and go, oh yeah, that was really good. Try one and then you'll forget it because people are in a habit of going back into their old patterns.
Yeah, and the first time you try it, it's going to feel awkward and weird. And then the second time, it'll be less so. Every now and then, you'll do one where it doesn't work. Okay, you got 10, next. Just keep moving on.
And then see which ones work best with your patients. But I'd say keep them handy in a drawer, keep referring to them. Like, I'm going to use this one today and see what happens. Once you do it a couple of times and you get the success from it, then you go, they're not full of crap. And it'll just keep going from there. Okay, number 9.
So number 9, I did an example for your coaching clients, and the pattern is what happens when you blank. So for your coaching clients, it might say, what happens when you finally have a system that works when you're not in the room? What happens when you have a system that works when you're on vacation? For a doctor seeing a patient, it might be, what happens when you can go back to sport in this way? What happens when you no longer feel that pain? What happens when your recovery goes more quickly than you ever thought it would, or than you thought was possible? So this pattern directs the listener's attention into the future experience.
And this is where all these tie in together too.
Sure.
And the thing is, you wouldn't use 10 of these. You wouldn't have a patient in your room or someone you're talking to and try and use all 10.
No.
Because they'd be sitting there going, what
is going on? They might feel good, by the way, but they feel probably confused at the same time. And then a variation on that is when you blank, then blank. So this
is number 10.
Yeah, this number 10.
Yeah.
We got 10. We said 10, we got to 10.
Got 10.
If we stop now, it would be weird.
We could stop right now and people go,
wait. And that is a very powerful technique, by the way, called the Zeigarnik effect. The human brain wants an answer. So, by the way, if we wanted to combine that, and it gets very excited, I want to close the loop.
Yeah.
It would say, when you blank, then, and you pause, brain's like, what? When I do what, then what? So when you start using this framework that we're giving you here consistently, then you'll begin seeing how much was already available to you, how much more persuasive you are, how many better results you start to get, those sorts of things. When you complete this step in your treatment, then the pace of recovery really accelerates. So this is when you do this, something now, then something will happen in the future. And it really works for a bunch of reasons, but when you suggest that when someone does something, you say then, and you pause, they really want to know what it is, so you've really got their attention. So it would be, in this one, when you complete this step in your treatment, then, their brain is like, then what?
Yeah.
And you say, then the pace of recovery really starts to accelerate.
Okay. So you're going to point out they're going to get to a certain point. Then things are going to accelerate and get better.
Yeah, and you might say you had this bad injury, you've done these 3 things. Now when you do this, then your pace of recovery is going to accelerate.
Yeah, and that's good too, because I can see it whether it's a patient or anything, if you can tell them when you get to this point, then this is going to improve from there. But the good part is, hopefully they get to that point sooner rather than later. So when they get there, they're going to go, he said I was going to get here.
Yes.
Now, this is what's going to happen in the future.
You've predicted it. And so when they get to the early stages, when they see that you were right about that, if you want to soften this, I've spoken to some doctors in some practices that say, well, not everybody does. So then I would simply say, are you comfortable saying, when most patients do this, I would say, when you do this, then many people experience that their recovery accelerates. I'm comfortable saying to my clients, when you do this, this happens. Or you could say, when you do this, then this usually happens. And it usually starts to accelerate.
So we've gone through all 10.
Shocking.
We've gone through all 10. Is there anything you want to add into this before we wrap it up?
Only that this will feel awkward. These sound odd when you pull them out of a conversation, pick them apart, and talk about them this way. But what you'll find, you'll start to recognize that you're doing this and that you already do this. We use these kinds of language patterns a lot of times when we're already really persuasive.
And I think sometimes too, I've said to some coaching clients, or just be talking to other podiatrists at a conference, and they'll talk about how they'll have certain patients where they'll explain something that goes really well. And then they'll say, but sometimes I'll be talking to them and also I pick at a certain point, I lost them.
Yes.
They've just,
You can see that.
it just, you can tell by their body language and they go, I don't know what it was that I said. And I go, well, when it's successful, what is it you're saying? And some of them aren't thinking about what they're saying. And they're probably fine. They're using some of these already. They just don't realize that they're using them. And if you become more conscious of using them, and because I used to just have a format on how I ran through with my patients. There were certain things I always said, and I knew when I got to a certain point, if I got a smile from them at this point, then I knew they were going to follow whatever treatment plan I was going to do.
And Tyson makes a great point. These are a tool in the toolbox, but really understanding the patient, asking questions and being able to pay attention at a deep level, not just to what they say, but how they say it and how they say it and the types of questions they're asking you back. The more information that you could gather about the patient and the circumstances and the environment and what's going on, what they're willing to try and not, the more easily and more thoroughly persuasive you become.
I love this stuff.
Oh, it's good. I like watching you do it.
Okay, Dave, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast again.
Thank you.
Sharing this thing about language patterns. And yeah, thank you very much.
Well, I hope it is as successful as one of Chase's episodes. I think I was in the lead for a while and then Chase just,
Chase was on my old podcast, with Dr. T. I took a copy of that one and reintroduced it in Podiatry Legends.
Dude, Chase is a friend of ours, and so he's a good egg.
He is. Okay, Dave, so thank you very much, and we're always talking.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to Business Back Ops in October in Arizona.
I'm looking for you to be there again. It's fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and you'll be speaking.
I'm always speaking.
True. Have a great one, everybody.
See you later. Okay, if you've been listening to the podcast, the audio version of the podcast, you'll know that about 1 in every 3 episodes, I will do an Easter egg. So I'm going to do an Easter egg in this episode, but I'm not going to provide the Easter egg this time. I'm going to let Dave do the Easter egg. So launch into it.
So the Easter egg is before we even begin. So if you came into a patient's room, you might say, oh, before we even get started, here's what happens. When you say that and maybe add this gesture, the patient relaxes, or if you're in a negotiation, by the way, the other person relaxes, the brain says, oh, we're not even beginning. And you can say, before we even begin, tell me a little bit about what's going on. How are you? What's happening? And then they will give you information and will, in a very relaxed way, without resistance most often. And then we can add one other technique to that, which is once they give you information, you go, that sounds right. And what else? And then they'll give you more information. Because I'm fond of saying to people, the first answer to the first question is almost always a lie. And by that, I don't mean that there's no truth to it. I just mean it's not the full truth. And so if you said to a patient, how are you doing? Tell me a little bit about what's going on, why you're here today. Before we even get started, they will tell you. And then you say, and what else? And now they'll give you more detail. That sounds right. And they'll give you more detail. And this is a very, very, very powerful technique, easy to do, and the results are shocking.
There you go. I hope you like that Easter egg, and tune in next week. Okay.
Take care.
Okay, bye.